We would rather just get used to each other immediately. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, thank you. We need more energy though. We need more energy. I'll try one more time. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Peggy Moyo. I'm just going to be brief because I'm going to spend the whole day with you today on principles and fundamentals on fundraising. But I wanted to welcome you on behalf of CAPSI, the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment, and the school as well, the business school. I mean, some of my colleagues are here, they're going to also talk to you. The context in which we are doing this is that, as you are all well aware, in your different countries where you are located, you engage with regional integration processes. You engage with SADC Secretariat, you engage with SADC projects, whether you are in the infrastructure department, you are in industry, you are in agriculture. In one way or the other, you have to familiarize yourself with what's happening in the region. And you, as the member states, you are actually the bosses of SADC as we speak, right? And so the idea behind what GIZ approached us to do was to look at the state of regional integration in Southern Africa, but also look at the regional indicative strategic plan, which is the operations plan of the region. As you are aware, the SADC Vision 2050 was designed in such a way that it's got at least 4 big pillars. You have industry, you have agriculture, you have infrastructure and others. But you also have enabling factors such as gender, such as the environment, such as governance, among others. But all these have to be funded in one form or the other. They have to be costed. And I'm aware that some of you are already doing the costing in your different countries right now, working with GIZ technical people to actually understand the extent to which you are going to need additional resources to finance the projects that you are putting in place. And so part of the realization out of that exercise is that SADC will require a lot of resources, more than what it currently has. SADC currently has resources mainly from member states' contributions. And as you know, those contributions are not enough to finance all the projects of SADC. So there are 2 things here. There's SADC, the Secretariat, and there's SADC, the community. And the Secretariat can easily be funded by international cooperating partners like GIZ, the EU, by member states. But the projects on the ground are a different ballgame altogether. Who finances the road between Botswana and Zambia? Who finances the road between Botswana and Namibia? And all those things. So there are so many regional projects that the SADC Vision 2050 has put in place. And those will require additional resources. So where do you get those resources, right? Where do you get those resources? Because the member states' contributions, whether at a national level or when you are contributing to SADC, they are not adequate enough to finance all of this. I think at the last counting or costing, the SADC Secretariat needed at least $12 billion US dollars annually to finance regional projects. Where is that money coming from? So we then agreed with GIZ that one of the ways in which we could do this is to come together and identify innovative as well as alternative sources of financing. How do you go about looking for resources? What are the techniques? What are the mechanisms that you have to embark on? So currently, you might not be doing any fundraising or any resource mobilization at all because you are collecting taxes. I mean, the fiscus is funded by tax collection in some of the countries, or there might be funding that you're getting from maybe the IMF, the World Bank, and others. But over time, you will need to almost go to the private sector, go to philanthropies, and go to other venture capitalists who are likely to give you funding. And this module is really supposed to assist you in your different departments, in your different countries where you are located, to be able to assist in finding ways and mechanisms, firstly, around how you can fundraise. Secondly, where do you actually fundraise from? For what purpose? How do you write a winning proposal? How do you write a bankable project? How do you budget? And how do you report? Because donors also want you to report based on what you have done with the money that they give you. And so the 4 days are meant to assist you in firstly, making sense of the projects that you've been requested to actually come up with. Some of you are working with these projects already in your countries. Some of you might not have done that already. You might have to develop a fictional project, because at the end of the day, you should be able to demonstrate that you are able to apply the techniques on fundraising, the principles and the fundamentals, but also be able to write. And so you will see that the 4 days are structured in such a way that you've got some theoretical interventions, and then you've got some practical applications of the knowledge that you would have gained in the theoretical elements. So there will be somebody who will come and talk to you about writing. How do you write a proposal that's bankable? There will be somebody who will come and talk to you about deal structuring. How do you actually go out into the market and structure deals that appeal, or rather appeal to the kind of work that you are doing? If you're infrastructure, how do you go to the market and set up infrastructure bonds, go to the market and do blended finance, among others? So there will be other people who come and take you through those instruments and how you can utilize them. So my role is really to welcome all of you from your different countries, from your different departments, from your different ministries, and just say my colleagues are here from CAPSI, from the Executive Education here at the Business School, but also our colleagues from GIZ are also here. And so this is really a partnership for us between GIZ, SADC, the First Business School, and our center as CAPSI. I will come back actually, because I'm going to spend the whole day with you, taking you through the module on principles and fundamentals on fundraising. But I wanted to take this opportunity as the head of CAPSI to welcome you all and say you are welcome. Feel free to approach any one of our colleagues at any given point if you need some assistance. You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the program, as you've heard, is sponsored by GIZ, so we're also going to now call GIZ to also do opening and welcome. I think you should introduce yourself as well, because I'm not sure if they all know you, and you can come to the front. Thank you.
Thank you, Tandy. Oh, sorry. Dr. Kira, apologies. My name is Vitima Mkandoye. I'm technical advisor for SNL program. It's a GIZ program funded by the German government and EU, but essentially it's a SADC project. I plan to make a beautiful speech, but unfortunately I wasn't able to prepare one because nobody came to pick me at the airport. So I only got to my hotel room past 11, but I left around 7 at the airport. So I just slept, so I'll speak from my heart. But let me recognize Prof. Becky and the entire team from CAPSI and Business School, Dr. Kila, Tandy, Tumeleng, and others. Let me also welcome our distinguished delegates from 10 SADC member states present here. I think Malawi is not yet here because I think they arrived in the morning, so possibly they'll join us in the afternoon. First is to welcome you all to this training. Essentially, SNL, as you can see from the board here, is aim to support member states domesticate regional policies. So our focus is essentially in 3 areas: supporting coordination efforts, monitoring, that's to do with M1E systems, as well as alignment of regional policies to national policies. And the third focus is resource mobilization, and this is the reason why we're here. Because we believe we don't have enough resources, so it is important that we focus our energies to build capacities around the subject matter, so that we're able to at least able to solicit as much more resources as we can, so that we're able to implement our national priorities as well as regional priorities. And for this reason, we partnered with CAPSI of the Business School here to help us in trying to build capacities in resource mobilization. Our expectation is by the end of the 5 days we're here, we should be able to come up with already funding proposals that we can use to reach out to funding partners, be it regional or national. And we would also urge all of you to at least use live projects from the current digital costing exercise that is taking place. I know some of you are from Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and you are already involved in the costing of the digital, and we feel it would be better if you could use live projects for simulation during class presentations. Finally, I hope by the end of the training, we should be able to have the skills and knowledge that we can take home and use in our day-to-day workflows. Also, let me thank Prof. Becky and the team for all the preparations that went through in arranging for this course. And also my colleagues at SNL, Marlon and Kiso, for the generous efforts in supporting me. But in the end, also let me recognize the role of the NCPs in all the 10 member states present here for their assistance in helping us to receive the nominations. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitima. Now, we're all here at Wits Business School. So the university, Wits University is a very big institution. It's just down the road there, the main campus. This is the business school. And in the business school, we have executive education where you are being offered this course. So you are actually going to receive a certificate at the end of day 4 once you attended all the trainings and participated throughout the 4 days. So we're in the Wits Business School in executive education. So I'd like to call the Director of Executive Education who are housing this program for us, and who are also going to assist with your graduations and all the fun stuff towards the end of day 4. Her name is Leonie Kroger. So Leonie, please come to the front.
Good morning, everybody. No. How are you this beautiful Monday morning? Where is the energy? What are you here to do? You have to raise funds. So if you raise funds and you're going to raise them on a piece of paper, where must the energy come from? So I want to thank Becky and I want to thank Kira for all the hard work and the effort. Also our colleagues from GIZ, thank you so much. I cannot begin to tell you how incredibly important this kind of program is. Everybody thinks that they can fundraise, and everybody thinks that they can write a proposal. And I'm here to tell you today that that is not the truth. It is an incredibly specialized skill that needs to be developed and it needs to be honed. I sit on the other side of the table most days where I am dying to get business for executive education. And I have to write proposals, and I have to write tenders. I've got no tender writers in my business, I've got no proposal writers. I have to do it. Because in my previous life, I sat on the other side when the proposals came into me and the requests came into me. And within the first 11 sentences, you can already see where the proposal is going. So what I want to say to you that this is an incredible opportunity to hone this very specific skill. I think the fact that there is such a wonderful representation of the continent here today is very heartwarming. We all know what the challenges are. We all know deep down that we want to do good for the continent and for each other. And in some very interesting and dynamic and weird way, here you all sit today to try and see how you can best develop your continent or your country. But the difficulty is that you are going to have to do it on a piece of paper. So the next 4 days are going to be incredibly challenging. I think the knowledge component is going to be very interesting, but where the real learning takes place, ladies and gentlemen, is the application of what you've been taught. when Becky and Kira are going to give you examples of a project that you need to apply for fundraising for. How are you going to start off to grab the attention immediately? Are you going to use emotional words and fluffy words? Because if you do that, you come across as almost like immature on paper. So it's such a beautiful skill that you will learn now. But this skill will take you through the rest of your life because it's the ability to write that is being cultivated and then to generate the sources of funding. So we are very excited to be part of this program. If I'd known, I would have tried to see if I could stick in one of my BDEs on the program as well because I think they would benefit, but I'll speak to Becky and about that later. We can negotiate. It's all about you, Becky. You said something about how you negotiate it. But honestly, though, I think it's an important program. I wish you all the best of luck. Enjoy this learning journey and the experience. My team is here to help you make you feel comfortable. But you've got the experts with you today who are completely obsessed and committed with philanthropy and with fundraising. So just a warm welcome for us. Enjoy, learn. You're going to be stretched, but that's where the growth happens. So to the delegates that are on all the technology because they've got the translators, best of luck. I'm sure it's going to take a bit of time to get used to, but then you'll find your rhythm and your flow. But just enjoy this wonderful experience and again, a warm welcome to Wits Business School. Thank you so much.
All right. I didn't introduce myself because I was waiting for this part where I'm going to take you through what's going to happen over the next 4 days. Let me just change the screen. All right. So, okay, here we go. All right, so firstly, 2 things. My name is Kiratilo Mokwati. I'm a lecturer here at the Wits Business School in CAPSI. I teach African philanthropy amongst many other things. We have short courses within our field. You guys are actually participating in a customized short course. We also have a postgraduate diploma and also a master's degree in philanthropy. So if you enjoy what you're going to learn over the 4 days, it's actually something that you can take seriously with your lives. When I started off 2019, I was coming from the corporate world. I actually was tired of the corporate world. I felt like I'm on a conveyor belt. Like you wake up, go to work, come back, raise kids, you die, and that's it. So I was like, I don't want to be on this conveyor belt, and I don't want my life to be like that. So I stepped out, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I found myself here and into this field that I'm enjoying, and I'm actually teaching right now. So this is just part of all the offerings that we have within the school. So what we do for all courses, this was inspired by COVID, obviously. We have a learning management system called Ulwazi. All of you should have received an email about this by now. It's our learning management system, and this is where you need to go to access all the materials that have been taught in the class. Okay, so I'll repeat that. This is where you go to access all the materials that have been taught in the class. So in the email, there's a username and a password that you're going to use to log in. When you log in, this is what you're going to see. So there's a short introduction video there. To access the materials, you go to the tab on your extreme left and you click on modules. In modules, you're going to see a number of folders because there's different topics that we're taking you through over the next 4 days. So you're going to find a folder for the module. And in the folder, you'll find the readings that have been referred to in class. You will also find the slides, the materials that the lecturers have used. You can access it from there. Okay. So play around with it today. Maybe when you knock off after day 1, log in and see if you can access this. If you have any challenges accessing it, you need to let us know by tomorrow so we can help you with that. Otherwise, you can't access all this beautiful stuff. Are we happy? Okay, so slides, reading materials, this is where you go to. The learning management system is called Ulwazi, and we've put everything for you in there. Now, the second thing is your timetable. We're going to print this out for you if it's not in your folders already. But this is how the 4 days looks like. So we're here today on the 20th of June. The whole day you're doing fundraising and resource mobilization today. The whole day for today. It's okay, you can hear, okay. For the whole day today, you're doing fundraising and resource mobilization. We have a tea break at 10 o'clock for 30 minutes, and then there's a lunch break at 12 o'clock for an hour. So for both of those sessions, we'll assist you with that. Ado, please stand up at the back. That's Adorable. She's your ERM, it's called Executive Relationship Manager. She's your boss for the next 4 days. So she'll take you to the tea breaks, she'll take you to the lunch breaks. If you need the bathrooms, I suppose you saw them on your way up. As you come out of here, there's a large staircase. You don't go to the staircase. On the right is the gents, and on the left it's the ladies. Okay, so tea breaks, if you need the bathroom, you can go anytime, but tea breaks is 10:30 and lunch is at 12. Day 2 is tomorrow. We do need to start promptly today. We had a bit of delays, but tomorrow you have 2 sessions. So from 8 to 12, you'll do venture philanthropy with Michelle. She'll be dialing in from Cape Town. So we come here and then you participate in the class even though she'll be online. After lunch, there's 2 sessions. You're going to get into financial instruments and also spend some time on your projects. I hope you've all thought about your projects. You have ideas, by show of hands, of what projects you're going to initiate? Yes, you do. Okay, some of you don't. You still need to think about it. Yes, so tomorrow we're going to spend significant time on that because you need to come out of this not only with your project idea, but also start writing the proposal, start thinking about who you're going to approach for fundraising and all of that. So tomorrow afternoon we'll spend some time on that. Day 3 is the 20th of June. So for the morning session, 8 to 12, you're going to learn about some tools and applications on financial instruments. So Frank is going to take you through that. He's also going to dial in from Bali. And then the last session in the afternoon will be with Dr. Robin. He's going to help you with proposal writing and how to write a case for support. The last day is also action-packed. So 8 to 12, you finish off venture philanthropy. The difference here is that now she'll be helping you to develop tools of how to approach corporate funders, for example. So that's application and practice. And then the last half of the day, you're going to do budgeting and finance management for mega projects. So how to start thinking about your budgets and managing your finances. This is actually going to end at 4 o'clock because from 4 to like 5:30, we're going to do a graduation. Remember I mentioned the certificates? So we're going to do an actual graduation with gowns and everything from 4 to 5:30. So if you bought nice outfits, it will be good on the last day, on the 23rd of June when we take the photos. Are we all happy with the timetable? Happiness. All right, so we'll just get this printed for you. It is available on Ulwazi as well, but we'll give you a printed copy as well. All right, so without further ado, I'll now hand over to Peggy to start day 1, which is fundraising and resource mobilization. And then you're going to take your tea break at 10:30.
Is it back to the...
Yeah, I'll put it back now.
Okay. All right, so I'm good. Okay. Okay. While she's setting up my slides, can I see how many of you have raised money before? By show of hands, how many of you have raised money? It doesn't matter how much it is. How many of you have raised money before? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Let's talk about the quantum. How much have you raised? Let's start with, say, yeah. Introduce yourself, actually, that would be nice to know. Okay. 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 So how much have you raised so far? Do you have a... Okay. And that's mainly from bilateral donors? Okay. Okay, grants as well. Okay. Somebody here said they've raised money. I think it was you. Introduce yourself, Caroline. Which country, what you do, and how much have you raised? Oh, okay. Okay.
Hello. Okay, I'm Caroline from Tanzania. I have raised money, but it was in a family thing, just small amount. Let's say 1,000 USD.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
From when you say it was a family thing, you're raising from family members?
Yeah, mostly from family members.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you're raising from individuals. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Somebody's hand was up. Was it you? Okay, there's a gentleman behind.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Philip Chilambo is my name.
If you could speak up, Philip.
Yeah. I'm from Zambia at Cabinet Office, the Gender Division. So I work in the planning department for...
I doubt if colleagues can hear you. Can you hear him?
Okay.
What's that?
So I said my name is Philip.
Okay.
Yes, from Zambia. Cabinet Office, Gender Division. So I have been working in the planning department for the Gender Division. It was then the Ministry of Gender, but until last year, it was transitioned to become a division. So basically, the issues of raising resources through project proposals, engagement with donors is part of my work. So to put a figure to it, off cuff, is not easy, but
not
I'd
easy.
say somewhere between 350 million USD to 500.
Okay. So that's a lot. So you're doing that on your own or with a team?
With a team.
With a team. Okay, great. How many of you are currently doing resource mobilization? I know he says it does that. It does that. How many of you are doing resource mobilization in your work as your job description? Can I just see by show of hands? 1, 2, 3. Only 3 people. So the rest of you, what do you do? What do you do? So that we can tailor these modules so nicely for you. What do you do? Let's start with you, sir.
No, in fact, myself, I'm happy to be here because I think this program came at an opportune time, more especially we were reviewing our policy under the EQUIP. I help GIZ and some of the colleagues from SNR, they will be happy. I think we are reviewing our policy. So as part of the policy review, I think at the end we'll need to come up with a costed action plan. Of course, we'll need to have some resources to implement the policy.
Okay.
So I think I'm very much happy and comfortable, and I'm committed to finishing this exercise so that we could ensure that Eswatini implements effectively the new policy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we're going to start. I just wanted to get a sense of who does what and when. Please feel free at any point in time to ask or to raise your hand. Sorry. Okay. All right, so we have a bit of a time challenge, but I'm going to ask that you introduce yourselves quickly. It's going to take almost an hour. That's my biggest worry. It's going to take an hour to introduce everyone, to say, I am so and so, I do this. It's eating into my time, right? But let's start. If you can just tell us who you are, your country, and maybe your ministry, where you are located.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mrs. Bisesa. I'm a cooperation analyst at the Regional Integration Division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Mauritius.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sushil Kavleso. I work at the Central Bank of the Republic of Mauritius.
Thank you. Central Bank, okay.
Morning, everybody. I'm Amugam from the Ministry of Finance, Republic of Mauritius. I have many responsibilities, lead analyst at the ministry, including resource mobilization.
Thank you. If we could go that way.
Good morning. I'm Mozambique. I'm from Mozambique. I'm working for Minister of Foreign Affairs in this office.
Okay. I'm not so sure that colleagues can hear each other, you know? Yeah? Can we just, I don't know, Jayten, is it possible to use the speakers? Because I think people, oh, okay. All right, so can you speak up? Are there people on Zoom? Oh, okay. All right. So if you can try and speak up, because I can barely hear you. Okay.
My name is Nomvula Ndwandwe. I am from Eswatini, and I'm
State Ministry Regional Integration.
c'est Madame Patricia Kalumbu. Je suis chef de bureau à l'intégration régionale, à la division unique, et je suis du ministère de l'intégration régionale et la francophonie, DRC.
Okay. Now you can follow, right? She's Madame Patricia from the DRC. I think you said you are the Chief Director, Regional Integration, right? Oui. Merci beaucoup. Alize.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mlenga Kasonde from Zambia, Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, and I basically work on budgeting, planning affairs for the ministry.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jessie Sonka from Zambia. I work under the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
Okay, thank you. I think you can.
Once again,
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Taipi Dlamini from the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade and Industrial Policy Unit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Philip Chilambwe from Zambia, again, Gender Division at Cabinet Office.
Okay. Makubu.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Makubutu Rakubutu. I work in the Ministry of Finance in Lesotho, in the Department of Public Debt Management as the debt manager. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabisenta Rumbiso from the Ministry of Finance, Lesotho. I work in the macroeconomic policy and management as a chief economist. Basically, what we do in the macroeconomic, among others, it's we oversee the resource envelope for the budget execution. So I should believe the cost will be very essential for
So
us.
you manage money that is already in-house?
It's already in-house as well as finding ways of getting
more.
Yeah,
Okay,
getting more.
great.
Thank you.
My name is Motsidise Mokhoro from Lesotho. I work in the Ministry of Finance in the Budget Department.
You say budget? Okay.
Hello, my name is Caroline Malima. I work as a Foreign Service Officer from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the United Republic of Tanzania. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Edwin. I am an economist from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, United Republic of Tanzania.
Okay, thank you.
Bon dia, good morning. My name is Hamilton Munduz from Mozambique. Apologies, my English. From the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Cooperation Department.
Bon dia. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm from Mozambique. I work at the Ministry of Industry and Trade at National Directorate of External Trade. I'm Officer of International Relations and Diplomacy.
Okay. I think everyone has introduced themselves, so we're going to move a bit faster because I want us to cover as much ground as we can. Okay, so I think we've kind of covered this. How does this move, Jayton? Well, this is not moving anymore. Sorry, I just need to. Wow, this is going to. Okay, I hope everyone can see there. I need to get used to this. So basically, what we want us to do here is firstly is to understand the fundraising landscape. By fundraising landscape, we're talking about how does the environment look like from an economic, political, cultural, and technological perspective. Because fundraising is really about a science and an art that you engage in when you are going to basically ask for money. You are going to ask for money. If we put it frankly, you are going to beg for money. Yeah? So how do you beg for money? But in a dignified, scientific way. How do you beg in a scientific way? So the first thing that we want you to do is to understand the landscape in which fundraising takes place. I've already heard some of you talking about bilateral institutions, government-to-government aid, but there's also all other forms of sources where you can fundraise from. So there's a whole world of philanthropy that we are going to talk about. There's the whole world of the corporate sector that we're going to talk about, and the various instruments that are available for you to actually utilize. There's a whole world of individuals like yourselves in your countries, in the region, some of whom have made so much money and they are dying to want to give it away. Some of them at the ages of 55, 60, 70, they're thinking, I don't want to leave my money with my family. I've already done a lot for them. I want to give this money back to a good cause. Who do I give it to? They are looking for somebody to give that money to. And you are sitting there in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and you are looking for money to finance 1 or 2 projects. and somebody is passing there every day. Some of them, you work with them. You may not even know that they are actually so rich, you work with them. And they are willing to give that money away. But how do you identify that somebody is willing to give money? How do you identify a donor? How do you see a donor from a distance? So that fundraising landscape, we are going to talk about that. Whatever I'm going to talk to you about today is stuff that has been proven by research, by science. It's stuff that I am living myself. I raise money. I teach and I raise money. I run a center here. I've run institutions prior to this. So I raise money. Whatever I'm going to talk to you about is stuff that I do, right? And if you are going to implement it, it doesn't really matter where you are sitting. You can be running an NGO. You can be running a big project in government. You can be in corporate. The principles and fundamentals of fundraising are the same. It's how you apply them. They are the same. So that's the first thing that I want you to understand. And then, of course, we get into the various techniques, the various principles, and the various ways in which you approach donors. Yes, sir. The interpretation is not good. Okay. Can we sort the interpretation? Okay? C'est bon? Monsieur? No? Not yet. Okay. I will just proceed so that I'll try. I mean, I don't know if the interpreters can hear me. Can we confirm? Is it okay? So is it all channels or just the French channel? The Portuguese one is fine. Sorry? Sometimes it's down.
Because they have to listen to you and then
Okay. So the Portuguese one is fine, I guess. Let's make sure that the French one is okay. There are 3 people who speak French here, right? Is it back? Okay, all right, so it's back. So I was saying then we'll need to make sure that you get the principles, you get the techniques in terms of how you go about doing fundraising. But also, how do you plan, design, and manage fundraising? You need to have an infrastructure wherever you are based. You need to have an infrastructure. By infrastructure, we're talking about human resources, we're talking about systems, we're talking about policies, we're talking about skills and techniques that you need to have. So you don't just sit in a department and say we have a fundraising unit or a resource mobilization unit, but there's no infrastructure. You have to invest in that infrastructure. For example, how do you track the number of donors that come through your system? How do you report on the money that you spend and all of those things? So that infrastructure is very important. So we are going to go through some of those issues for you to take into account. But we also want you to, how do you also decide which donor you want to go to? So in fundraising, we are going to go through what we call a fundraising cycle. You have to invest in research. We call it prospecting. So you're going to come out here with so many terms that are used in fundraising. Prospecting is when you cast your eyes or your net wide to identify donors that apply or are relevant to the work that you are doing. And we are going to talk about principles of access. Who has access to the donors that you want to approach? Because not every donor that is around is accessible. Not every donor is accessible. You have to have access. And it doesn't follow that the person who has got access is you. It might be somebody else. But there's also issues of interest. You might have access to a donor, but the donor may not be interested in your work. You have to verify that they've got interest in your work. And then there's affordability. You might go to a donor at the time when they're actually financially, going through challenges. So that means they won't afford whatever you're asking for. So you need to also verify that they can afford what you are looking for. So All these are what we talk about when we talk about conducting donor research, prospecting, and then you cultivate, right? We are going to talk about that. Cultivation is when you now start this relationship building. You have to build a relationship with your prospective donor. You don't just go and ask for money. It doesn't work like that. You have to build a relationship. We say fundraising is friend raising. You must raise friends first. Does that sound familiar? You must raise friends first before you raise funds. Right? So cultivation is about raising friends. And I'm not talking about friends as in our normal understanding of the term friends. I'm talking about building trust, building a relationship which is personal, interpersonal based. So there are two things here. There's competencies. So you might be a ministry, you are competent in what you are doing. You are so good at what you are doing, but you may not be able to raise funds because your interpersonal skills may not lend themselves to funding. So you have to build two things: your competency trust, but also your interpersonal trust. A donor wants to feel very comfortable with you. They want to go out with you for coffee. They leave their cup of coffee, they go to the bathroom, they come back and they drink from that same cup. If they come back and they don't drink from the same cup, they are saying something about you, right? What are they saying? They don't trust you. I'm using an analogy here. It means they don't trust you. So you have to build trust. Once you build trust, you are able to begin raising resources of any amount. Raising money is an art and a science. If you raise, let's say, $1,000 and somebody raises $1 million, the same principle would have applied. The same principle in terms of management and reporting of that money applies. It doesn't matter whether it's $1 million or it's 1,000. It doesn't matter, because the person who would have given you that $1,000 would have given it out of probably their last amount, or they would have budgeted to give that money to you. The same amount, the $1 million that might come from a high net worth individual, from the African Development Bank or whoever it is, they also require the same attention to detail in terms of reporting, management, among others. So it doesn't really matter how much money you receive. The principles are the same. And that would also want you to leave here with some idea of how to develop your own fundraising or resource mobilization plan and be able to go back home and implement that. And then, of course, the proposal, in fundraising, we also talk about something called a case for support. We're going to come back here towards the end of the day. By case for support, we are actually saying, what is that short speech that you can give in an elevator when you suddenly meet Patrice Mutsipe and you've been looking for him? You want him to fund something. You meet him at the elevator. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? You probably have 2 minutes with him in that elevator or less. What are you going to say? Let's see. We have to role play here. Let's see. You meet Patrice Mutsipe, you have been looking for him, you want to fundraise, you know he's got the money, you know he's willing to give that money. You meet him, what are you going to say to him? Oh, who wants to try? What are you going to say to Patrice Mutsipe? Don't be shy. If you are going to look for money and raise money, you must not be shy. Because the moment you are shy, you're not going to be able to ask. You know, how many of you know a guy called Francis Labette? He used to be a former member of parliament here. He told me a story when I interviewed him for my studies. He told me a story that once they were fundraising for a group called IDASA, the Institute for Democratic South Africa. They went all the way to the US. And while they were somewhere in the north, they were told to go to Manhattan because there's a big donor there who is likely to fund them. They flew to Manhattan. They went into this apartment. They found this donor. They spoke about everything and anything under the sun. And they couldn't ask this guy for money. They kept nudging each other, like kicking each other, wanting to say, start, and they couldn't. Until the guy said, okay, time up, let's go. So he took them to the elevator. While they were at the elevator, he then said, why were you here? They said, we're coming to ask for money. They said, how much? They didn't know. They didn't know. The guy took out his checkbook, signed $5 million, and gave it to them. Right? What's wrong with that picture? What's wrong with that picture? You've been told, here's a donor. You go to the donor. You are scared. You don't ask for the money until the donor says to you, okay, your time is up. Let's go. And then the donor then asks, why were you here? You then say, we're here to ask for money. And he says, how much? And then you don't know. What is wrong with that picture? Sorry? Can you please?
The donor could have had more than 5 million, and we don't know what 5 million is compared to the whole pie that he has. So the picture is, if we had the confidence to approach him, then we would have pleaded our case and maybe gotten 10 million, who knows?
Yeah, we'll come back to this. So the point I wanted to make is that you have to do your research, you know the donor, you know what they can afford. You must also know your own budget. What is your need, right? So that when you get there, you know exactly what you're asking for. Because once you don't know what you're asking for, the donor already decides that this person does not know what they want. And therefore, they might not even trust you with their money. What they do, they might just give you just something small to test how you are going to use it. Anyway, we are going to cover all of this. I saw a hand up there. Moso. Is it done? Is it okay? Are you okay? Okay. This is going to give me a problem, eh? Later. What's going on? I want to move, it is not moving. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's look at this. So I want us to cover, before we go to break, at least these, hopefully these 4 areas. So the first is something called the cube. The second is the fundraising cycle. The third is the donor typology or landscape. And then hopefully before lunch we'll cover what I consider to be the 6 rights in resource mobilization. And these are the key things that I think as we go through this, we're going to look at. So let's start with the okay, so this is just showing you the cost structure. I think I would jump this because we're a bit late. Again, just look at that. These are just the expectations and what you should be getting out of this as the participant. What are you likely to get out of, what is this thing? Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, ideally, at the end of this module, you should be in a position to understand that fundraising is actually a process and it's multidimensional. So it's not something that you can do overnight. It's not something that you get on and tomorrow you've got money. You have to almost travel a long journey in it. But also, I want you to be able to distinguish between what is right, what is wrong, what is lawful, and what is unlawful in fundraising. There's a huge difference in fundraising between what is legal and what is ethical. We are going to touch some of those areas towards the end. And of course, we want you to go through the tools and understand these tools. And if you want, you can later on become what we call a professional in fundraising. So let's start with the cube. So in the cube, basically these are different dimensions that you need to have in place for fundraising to be effective. So earlier on, I talked about the infrastructure for fundraising. What are the different elements that you must think about when you are thinking about fundraising or resource mobilization? At a personal level, at an institutional level, or at a project level, you need to think about these different things. So the first one that I want you to look at is the vehicle. So the vehicle is, if you think about the analogy of a vehicle, we're talking about something that you can put contents into, something that you use to transport. It's an instrument. So in this case, when we talk about vehicles in fundraising, we're really looking at what are the various instruments that you need to design as an institution, as a project, so that you are able to implement your fundraising strategies or to be able to receive the funding, for example. So there's instruments around what you are sending out, right? And there are instruments for receiving, right? So in terms of what you are sending out, you obviously in most departments, you might have a donor management system. I don't know what system you are using currently in your units, but generally you build a donor management system, and that donor management system allows you to track the applications that you are doing, to track the money that you actually get in, the contracts, how you spend, and how you report back, right? So in major foundations, they use a system called Flux. So Flux allows you to upload everything in that technological platform, and you also get to track all contracts, all expenditures, but also all the relations that you build with other donors in that platform. So in your different ministries, you might have to develop, or you already have different instruments that you are using, but that's a vehicle that you are using. And then for receiving now, you also have to think about what are the instruments for receiving. Is it a grant, for example, right? If it is a grant, then you know how a grant needs to be managed. Is it concessions? Then you know how it needs to be managed. Is it a loan? And all of those things. So all these are different instruments that you need to have, and these are vehicles. If without a vehicle, you are not able to either send out or to receive. So make sure that your vehicles are strong. Make sure that they are actually used in conjunction with the other dimensions. And so the second dimension is human resources. Right. So the mistake that most people do, or most institutions do, is to think that they must just have one person in an organization responsible for fundraising or resource mobilization. I'd say I don't know how many of you are in your team that are responsible for resource mobilization.
In my team, but we don't cover all the. In my team, we cover 2%, 3 or 4%, but we don't cover all the development projects. So there are teams that cover some other development projects. My team will cover specific development projects. So this is how it goes.
Okay. So the point is, you need to have an effective human resource infrastructure, and this stems from people who are very good at doing prospecting research. So you need to have researchers, right? But you also need to have people who are very good in finance, right? Some of you are from the finance and planning, so you need people who can actually crunch the numbers. You need those people in your fundraising team. But you also need people who are negotiators, people who are very good at negotiating. And some of you said you are from foreign affairs and all those ministries. You already develop relations with other bilateral institutions, multilateral institutions. But beyond those, you also need to develop relations with industry. Some of you are from the ministries of industry. You need to develop relations with other sources as well. So you also need people who are so good at going out and marketing and selling the products. In other words, in fundraising, you must ask yourself, what am I selling? You are begging, but you are also selling. What are you selling? Your product must be something that is bankable, something that somebody can buy. And it's something that you can say to somebody, I'm actually better than the next person. It's not competition per se, but you have to show your uniqueness. Why must the donor come and give the money to you and not to him? We are all government. We are all nation states in SADC. Why must they come to Mauritius and not to Lesotho or Swaziland? You have to be unique. So part of uniqueness stems from the quality of the team, the human resource that you have. And you need your leadership to actually believe in the team, to invest in the team, but to also be aware that fundraising is about friend raising. So that means some of your key leaders in your institutions must technically become chief fundraising officers. It can be your minister, it can be your chief director, it really doesn't matter, but one of those key leaders becomes the chief fundraising officer by action, not by title, but by action. And then you've got what we call the dynamic functions. And here, this is where we are actually bringing everything together. You are actually integrating the various elements of your project, your institution, your ministry, your department. And here, I think one of the things that we need to really do is that you must be aware of what your blind spots are as an institution. You must be aware of your blind spots as a project. So in fundraising, you can be so good at almost everything, and there could just be one blind spot. One blind spot. And that one blind spot could derail everything. Just when you're about to seal the deal, something just comes up. Pay attention to blind spots. So these are some of the things that I wanted you to look at. So the cube is something that will include other things like management, like the institutional readiness, like the donor markets. I'm not covering everything. You're actually going to get the presentation is already on ULWAS. You can actually find it there. So I want to move now and talk a bit about differences between fundraising as an initiative, just one thing that you do, and how that on its own may actually be limiting as opposed to looking at fundraising as development. So this is a bit of a philosophical approach to it. So by development, we are saying you need to understand another person's values. So fundraising is an exchange of values. You exchange values. So if I'm the donor, I'm exchanging my values financially with your values. So I will give you money, or I'll give you other forms of resources, but in return, I will get something from you. So resource mobilization is an exchange of values. So don't think that donors just give money away, they don't receive anything. They do receive something from you. What do they get from you? Let's take an example, a corporate donor. A corporate donor, a private sector company comes to give you funding, and you are the government. What do they get from you? Sorry? They might be getting advertising, mileage, so reputation. What else will they be getting? Come on, people, come on, you are running these countries. They're building a relationship. What else? Corporates, they are always there in your countries, they visit your offices. What else do they want? Goodwill, right? So a social license to operate, basically, right? Do you know what a social license to operate is? A social license to operate, it's not like you give them any written thing. It's for them to be able to be accepted in any community where they're operating. by trade unions, by civil society, by the community and others. But there are other things. As a government, what else can you give them? I heard something. Contracts. Tax incentives, right? Tax incentives. You can give them tax incentives, right? So that's corporates, they might actually benefit something from you. So if you look at it from a developmental point of view, you are engaging in a journey, in a relationship with this donor, right? They get to know you, you get to know them. So it's no longer transactional, where you just go and you get transaction done and you get out. You are actually going to be convincing them to come with you. In other words, it means the more they give to you, the more you build the relationship, the longer they are going to stay with you, right? At some point, we are going to talk about how you upgrade donors. So you can start with a donor giving you a small amount of money. Over time, you upgrade them to giving you a bigger amount of money. And then over time, they give you the biggest amounts. So that's development. You have to work with them and develop them. So it's an exchange of values. But you need to make sure that the values of the donor are aligned with your values. I know in government it might be very difficult to say these are our values as government. You know, for most institutions like NGOs, foundations, it's very easy to say, these are our 5 values. But you also know as a government, there are certain values that you subscribe to, right? No? I saw somebody shaking their head that no, we don't subscribe to any values. There are certain values that you subscribe to, right? As government, no? Service delivery is one of them. That's a value. You have to deliver services. Otherwise, why are you in government? You have to deliver services to the citizens, right? What's the other value that you might think about as a government? Sorry? Integrity, right? Integrity. Somebody's shaking their head saying no. Say, what was that? Oh yeah, less red tape. Less red tape. Not to be too bureaucratic and all of those. The point I want to make is that not every donor is necessarily your donor. Not every donor is necessarily your donor. Your donor's values must align with your values. Otherwise, you end up taking money from all sorts of sources. You have heard of tainted money? Does tainted money exist? It does. Okay. So you don't want to end up defending a particular amount of money that came from a source that you don't align with as an institution, right? But beyond money, of course, this happens more in the corporate sector, mainly for NGOs, community projects, but also with some of the collaborations with some of the government ministries now. You actually have people who may not give you cash, but they can give you other forms of support. So a high net worth individual, Dangote, for example, might actually come and donate cement, right? He might come and donate cement because that's his company, does cement, right? Or he can come and donate sugar. That's one of his companies, right? And what you do, you can monetize that yourself. But in terms of donations, you would have come to help with that. So there are so many crises that are happening right now with COVID, the cyclones, drought, and all those things. At times, you don't need to get the hard cash. You can actually get some of these people donating in kind, donating goods. But some of them can even donate buildings, infrastructure, right? We know of so many people that donate infrastructure. They build. I mean, if you walk around this university, you see so many names of companies that are imprinted into the buildings, right? You have Donald Gordon, you've got the FNB, you've got all of these names. All those names are based on somebody who put in their money or actually built that building, right? So at times you don't really have to look for money, but you can get time. You can get their wealth At some point, we will talk about planned giving. How many of you have heard of planned giving? Planned giving. So I said in passing, it sounded like a joke, but at the ages of 50 to about 70, you start thinking about what to do with your life. You start thinking about your legacy. And you decide you are going to bequeath your estate, your wealth, to a good cause. And most people, the rich, actually do that towards the end of their life. It's a very sensitive discussion in Africa because you don't want to go to him and say, my friend, it looks like in 5 years' time or so you might be dead. What can we do with your money, right? It's a very sensitive discussion, but this is normal. Everyone at the edges of that, they begin to start thinking about what to leave behind as a legacy. And the history of philanthropy and the history of giving globally is such that a lot of these people who made a lot of money, your Carnegies, your Rockefellers, and others who made big money, towards the end of their life, they wanted to spend that money, not with their families or on their families, but back to society. And so planned giving becomes one instrument in which you can go to them and negotiate huge deals around their estate. It could be buildings, it could be their company, it could be their shares, it could be their investments. And most of them usually do end up giving. But you also have to donate your voice, your advocacy. I mean, some of you do travel to the World Economic Forum. Your governments do go there most of the times, right? And a lot of advocacy, policy influencing happens in that forum. And you see some of the high net worth individuals, some of the big foundations, and some of the big corporations, they make it a point that they go there so that they can actually make any influence. And so instead of looking for money, at times you can actually get a big issue on climate change, for example, resolved through the voice of one or two big individuals. So what am I saying here? I'm saying in fundraising, think beyond money. Money is very, very important, but money on its own is not enough to take you through the completion of whatever projects or activities you have planned. You have to think beyond money as well. Okay, please, if you want, you can stop and ask me anytime. Okay, I don't think this is clear. Something is not. Anyway, I will take you through what this is saying. So this is the fundraising cycle. So there's a cycle that you engage in fundraising. I say fundraising is almost thinking of friend raising, but it's actually an art. It's actually a science. You have to get into it with some knowledge, with some techniques, but you also have to have some artistic ways of doing it. So the first thing that we say in a fundraising cycle is that you must examine the case. You must examine the case. So what do we mean by examining the case here? We are saying for you to actually go out and say, I want to look for money, there must be a problem. You must define your problem. What is the problem that you are seeking to address? Are you able to explain what that problem is? What does it require? What will it cost? What will be the impact if you found the money? What will be the result in the community? So you must examine the case. Without a case, there is no need for you to go out and fundraise. You don't just go and fundraise because you want to. You fundraise because there's a need. So what is the need? Right? So let's just see from your countries. I don't know if you have already organized yourselves from each country in terms of your projects, or you just came from different departments. But if we say Swaziland, what is your need right now? If we were to say go and fundraise, what is your need? Eswatini. Hey, Bapi. Eswatini. There's 1, 2, There was a third one. Okay, there. What is the need right now? If you were to go out fundraising, it doesn't matter. It could be something global or it could be something in your unit. What is the need?
Well, for starters, from where I come from the information cluster, there's a need for the populace to understand and appreciate why the country, what is it that the country enjoys being a member of SADC, for instance. The visibility of benefits that come with the country being a member of SADC. If we're not a member of SADC, what would be the difference? If we are a member of SADC, what are the achievements that we can point? In other words, from the information cluster, we need to find a way of us appreciating our presence in SADC. So in other words, we need, what can I say? We need to find ways of, how can I put this? I don't know how to put this, but at the base of the problem is how do we get people to appreciate? Because right now people are ambivalent about.
Yeah.
So we need, how do we spread the information, get the people to appreciate?
Okay. So basically you're saying if you were to develop a project, your project will be around how to popularize the benefits of belonging to SADC or the benefits of regional integration. Will you be able to cost it and like develop it into a project? Because that's from you where you are sitting in information. Somebody was from, was it in finance? Okay, so what would be the need in your case? Think about the projects that you are also working on. So I'm trying to weave in some of the projects that you are also working on.
I would say maybe currently one of the things that are very important, I think in line with what my colleague said, we need to domesticate the SADC treaty in Eswatini so that the people feel capacitated to carry the load of international integration, so regional integration. So more like making it known, but this time in the political spheres and the high level people, and making it more, just knowing the benefits of being part of regional integration, and then investing in making sure that the structures that are in place are actually able to perform.
Okay, so yours will be domestication of the SADC treaty, and that includes lots of legal processes, political consultations, civil society, domestication activities, among others. Let's see, there was, is Zambia here? No. Oh yeah, there is Zambia. Zambia, I want to see, the reason why I'm asking Zambia is because there was another project last time. We had another class like this with colleagues from these countries as well. What would be your need? Can I get the mic here?
So maybe I can ask my colleague from the Ministry of Commerce.
Well, thank you. From the Ministry of Commerce perspective, I think there are already a couple of projects that the ministry is trying to work with other donors across the globe. And I think one of the key things that the ministry has been focusing is the issue to do with the MSME in terms of regulation standards, because we do realize most of our products are produced locally. They don't meet some of the standards. And so we're trying to capacitate them so that these standards can meet the international standards so that they might be able to export in the region and across the globe. So basically, I think the ministry is trying to help with that, setting up a regulation department which can help in fostering these MSME get capacity to have their products certified and standardized according to the stipulated standards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see Lesotho. Okay, there's a mic behind.
Thank you. In terms of Lesotho, we have a pipeline project that are already in place according to the National Strategic Development Plan. But the problem is the source of funding.
Yeah.
So we already have the pipeline projects that would want to get funding for. But over and above that, we want to align ourselves in terms of trade corridors. As you are aware that Lesotho is landlocked. So for now, the burning project that we have is with our airport to upgrade it to the level that it can create an easy access to our products as well as other member states.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm asking you to give us your projects because I want you to be able to define the case. I want you to be able to examine the problem that you are seeking funding for. If you don't define your problem, you are either going to look for donor funding from wrong sources, or you are actually not going to be able to find funding at all. So it's very important for you to be very clear about what your problem is. What is it that you are seeking to solve? And what will be the results? Because the donor at some point will say, what will be in for me? You should be able to articulate what the outcome is going to be, right? So examining the case is one of the first things in the cycle that you must do. So you don't go to fundraising before doing this. Sit down with your teams and examine the case. There might be several cases, yeah? Be careful not to put all of them in one fundraising proposal. Be specific about what you are asking for. In fundraising, there's resources that are meant for projects. So that means it's specific to a specific project. But there might be projects, there might be funding that is general. We call it general support or core support. That can fund anything and everything, right? So when you are going out and examining the case, be very clear. Is this a project-based problem or is this a general purpose problem? And like I said, what will be the outcome? The second thing is examine the market. Examine the market or analyze the market. In other words, here is the problem. So you talked about wanting to upgrade the airport, right? Examine the market. Will you go to an individual to help you upgrade the market? Will you go to her to look for money to ask her to help you upgrade the airport? No? You won't go to her? Okay. But would you go to the bank? Would you go to the African Development Bank, for example? Would you go to the World Bank, for example? Right? You would go to the World Bank, you would go to the African Development Bank, you would go to some of these mega donors that provide infrastructure funding, right? You might be lucky, you might get an investor like her, she might actually want to buy and upgrade the airport. Heathrow was bought by some Nigerian guy, right? At some point, no? No? So you can actually get, the point I'm making is your chances of getting an individual to upgrade an airport are very low, but they do exist. But your chances of getting the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and other mega projects, mega donors supporting that are very high. So in analyzing the market, you are trying to align the nature of the problem with the type of a donor who is likely to give you the funding for that, right? You talked about something to do with regulation, SMEs, and all of that. Again, your market might look very different from upgrading the airport, right? So you look at the landscape, and we are going to talk about the typology of donors, but you look at the landscape of the market and say, for the kind of a problem that I have, who is likely to support it? And what are the reasons behind them supporting it, right? So that's the analysis of the market. You have to understand your donor market in order to align it to your problem. And then the third stage here is preparing your needs statement. Preparing your needs statement. What do you need? What do you need? You have a problem, yes, we understand. You have identified the donors, that's fine, but what is your need? Let's go back to the example of the airport upgrade. What are your needs? Lesotho. What will be your needs? The point is the airport is a big thing, right? It's a major thing. So what do you need? I think she wants to say something. You have colleagues right from Lesotho. Yeah. Please help her.
Yes, currently our problem is that I think it's a myriad of problems that we are facing. We do have the existing airport, but then it's not to the world international standard for it to have for it to have access to markets, or even to promote to promote the corridors between countries for us to trade. As I have said, Lesotho is a landlocked country, so for us to trade, it takes a longer route other than to go through South Africa. We have cannabis, for instance, but Lesotho, South Africa has regulations in terms of transporting cannabis to an extent that we are constrained in terms of trading with other countries like Canada and other international.
Okay, let's do it this way. I'm your donor, and you are coming to ask for money to upgrade your airport, and I've just said, what are your needs? You've told me about cannabis, about this, and what are your needs?
Our needs is to build the airport. I might not have the proper answers, but I know the problems that we are faced with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, still you haven't answered me. Okay, the point I'm making, Edwin, go for it. The point I'm trying to say here is that you don't just go to a donor and say, we want to do this. You have to be clear about what your needs are. So, what are your needs? In this upgrade of the airport, what are your needs?
I think from analyzing what she's saying is maybe upgrading the security systems, maybe installing scanners, and cameras, whatever.
Yeah, so basically what he's saying and what I was wanting you to do is to be very specific, because the airport is so huge. Are you asking them to upgrade a specific issue around security, in which case you are going to a donor and asking for money to buy security infrastructure or whatever it is? Or are you asking them to overhaul the entire thing? So then what are your needs? Even that whole thing, what are your needs? Because
from the runway perspective, Lesotho, the reason why it has even for the runway itself,
we cannot have planes that can fly at night or even on rainy days when it's really obviously when it's not it doesn't have all the infrastructure in terms of flights to have shuttles even beyond 4:30, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
So the runway in itself, the lighting, I think it's an overhaul because even the buildings are dilapidated.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to stop and go for a short tea, but what I wanted to really emphasize is that for you to develop a needs statement, it's not something that you just, what they call thumbsuck, right? It's not that. It's something that you have to go deeper, do some studies to identify what the key elements of that overall are going to be, right? So if you're looking at runways, you're looking at buildings, you're looking at security, you're looking at everything, you've got to be able to identify those and cost them, right? You've got to be able to say, by talking about the upgrade, we're talking firstly, here are the 5 or 6 dimensions of this upgrade. The first one is runways. This is what is wrong with them. This is what we want to do. This is what it's going to cost. These are the benefits of that. You go to this, whether it's the arrivals, walls, whatever, you do the same. So there has to be an exercise that you do to identify your needs. And then you cost them. Because the donor will listen. But at the end of the day, the donor will say, so how much do you want? You should be able to pick up, you should be able to say the amount. You should be able to say the amount, right? So that's the exercise that you will have to do back at home if you have a project. You have to go into that exercise and say, this is our problem, it's the airport, yes, the problem. We need it to be upgraded. But what will it take to upgrade it? You go into breaking it down. So that when you go to a donor, you are able to choose, because at times you don't have to give the donor the entire request for the airport upgrade. Depending on what the donor can afford, you can actually break it into 4 or 5 donors. We're going to talk about that later. And then say, for this donor, I know they're interested in security issues. So you go to that donor for the security element of the upgrade. Other donors might be interested in naming rights. They want their name on the building. You go to that donor for the building, the infrastructure part of things. So you don't have to scare the donor by taking $12 billion. You say, I want 12 billion from you. The donor might run away. But you can go and ask for 5 billion. You can go and ask for 2 billion based on a particular project within a project, right? So that's the needs statement that we need to work on. Say.
The thing is that the resource mobilization team.
Oh, okay, there's one there.
Thank you. Normally, the resource mobilization team in my country, we are not the ones who prepare the projects. Prepare the, how we say, project description paper to give to the donors. So there's another team that liaises with the line ministry concerned, but prepares a project paper. We are the specialists regarding the technicalities of the project. And when once it goes to the approval process, when it comes to the resource mobilization, when we approach the donors, so it's a two-leg approach.
Yeah, I hear what you are saying, and I think it's a systems thing. So, and obviously, if I'm your donor, I'm assuming that as a government of Mauritius, you are speaking to each other, line ministries. I'm assuming that as a donor. So I don't even need to know what happens in your preparation of. I'm assuming that when you come with the document and you're asking money from me, and I ask you questions, you should be able to answer them. That's my assumption as the donor, right?
Of course, but
yeah.
You know, I just encountered a similar situation that you just mentioned. We sent the project description to the donor, and then they are asking questions. So what we did, we organized a meeting, the donor and the technical persons.
Yeah.
So this is how.
Wrong way of doing it. We are going to talk about it. So by the time you go to a donor, you must have known everything about the donor and about yourselves, and the composition of your team going to the donor must anticipate questions that are going to come from the donor. The moment you go and then you come back and regroup, you have already shown the donor that you are not either organized or you are not talking internally. We'll talk about it and about how to do the solicitation and how to approach. But can we stop here, grab a cup of coffee? I don't know how much time we have. We need to be back here, I think at 11, right? Then we'll continue with the cycle. I want us to move a bit faster than this. Okay, I think the T, I mean, where's the T? It's just out here. There must be a name written GIZ or something. Okay.